what I realize is I am not just responsible for my life. I'm responsible for the life of every other person around me. Which means, what great disgrace to myself and what great wickedness can I commit to those around me to take my own life? Welcome to the Nebula House Academy. For those who are watching online, this academy is like your traditional, it follows the traditional calendar where we have terms. So we have term 1, term 2, term 3. And in each of these terms, we are going to be discussing very abstract things, existential things. This is not the traditional school where we want to learn about physics or learn about chemistry or biology. But essentially, we want to learn to think. And I think that is one of the biggest gaps we have in the educational system. The educational system is supposed to teach us to learn, or we are supposed to learn how to learn. And we are not offering ourselves as a panacea for all the problems that we have in the educational system, but we are trying our best in our own way to ensure that outside the very typical learn for 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 weeks, you write an examination, Nebula Academy wants you to learn and then examine yourself. So you're both the examiner and the student. So for term 1, our theme for term 1 is pain, meaning, and the human condition. And the remaining terms, even up until the next academic year, follows the same thought process, the same philosophical question. And like you heard me say, term 1 is pain, meaning, and the human condition. In this particular term, we have 3 major modules. We have pain as the beginning, the meaning in darkness, and the war within. Now, this sounds very abstract. So the truth is, we have a culture, somehow, some way, that has made the idea of suffering a bad thing. For you to suffer means somebody in your village is doing you. And sometimes it's true. But we have made the idea of suffering, the idea of going through hard times, as something we should be scared of. And regardless of it, in this life, you're going to go through hard times. You're going to go through things that are going to question your faith. They're going to question your ability to be resilient. You're going to go through things that would make you, if you're a Christian or a religious person, you're going to question the concept of God. And in my experience, I've gone through that. I have gone through, in 2023, 2022, from my personal experience, I went through very, very great depression. And I think it's even during those times that I began to write. And that was even during those times that I realized more about myself. So we have a culture that tells you that you cannot, if you're suffering, it's a bad thing. But what we know, historically speaking, is most of the great things that have happened in our society, Nigeria, and even outside the country, have come out from pain. So there is an idea of pain and there's an idea of suffering. Suffering is how you respond to pain. And when you go through very hard times, you always have 2 parts. You can take one of those 2 parts. That's meaning and nihilism. Nihilism is you become decadent. So I'll give an example. I'm going to say something that I think explains this very clearly. The hero and the villain in most movies you watch always have the same story. They always end up, the difference between them is they react differently. That's just the truth. Someone goes, I heard this story, I don't know how true it is, but it highlights what I'm trying to say. 2 brothers from the same family had a father who was a drunkard. And one of them ended up rejecting the idea of drinking. He never drank. He stayed away from alcohol simply because his father was a drunk. The second person became a drunkard because, my father is a drunk, so therefore, it's in the family. We are all going to end up being drunkards. Why am I going to fight it? And as the story goes, one ends up becoming successful, the other ends up becoming a destitute. That story can be put in several other forms. So, ask yourself a question. Even in your school, There are times when you had to go through times when you are broke. We all have to be broke. You have to be broke to understand how to manage money. That's the truth. Some people become broke and they look for how to make money through laying their hands to the plow. They become creative. They get a better sense of financial management. And some other people go broke and then they stand on the streets and wait for people to tip them off and get into Yahoo and get into fraud and get into all forms of, when I say Yahoo, right? Let me just say this because I'm using a Nigerian slang. Yahoo means fraud, basically, right? So, but those are two different reactions to the same problem. So that is a quick summary of what pain is. So when you go through pain, what happens is it highlights a part of you that you don't know. Whether we like it or not, we are going to lose love. You're going to lose loved ones. It's not going to be, doesn't necessarily have to be family, but you're going to lose loved ones. You're going to have breakups. You're going to have things that you would pray to God you don't experience, and He, quite frankly, will let you experience it. And how you react to those dire times will determine whether you become anything or not. So I'm going to give you a personal story. I didn't plan to, but I'm going to give you a personal story so you connect with me a little bit more. I had come out from Common University in 2019. I was very determined to pursue a master's degree in cybersecurity. And coming out from Covenant, I was a brilliant student, or at least I hope I was. And I felt that if I put in any application, they would just hand me over there. They would give me the admission without even me asking. And it was the most important thing in my life. I could trade everything in my life to get the admission and go abroad to study cybersecurity. So I got my friends. I got a team. Let's do this. This is what we should do. We want to be great experts. We want to, go and do a master's degree wherever it is, Canada, America. Let's just get our hands on this application. And we did. And the reason I'm telling you this story is that you're students. And some of you may face this. So we are 8. We all came together. We applied. Even I applied first. So I got the admission. Easy. I've gone to school, engineering, brilliant student, So I got the admission. And I got a scholarship. The only thing that stood in my way now was visa. So my friends saw that I had gotten this school and they became happy, and they also applied, of which they also got admitted. To cut the long story short, all of them got the visas apart from me. Yeah, all of them. They all got it. They all got, and I sat and I was like, when I got this letter saying we can't give you the, after 2 years. Yes, after 2 years, because in 2019 we started the application. I had to defer because of 2020 the coronavirus. So 2021, I was distraught. I was crestfallen, and I shedded tears heavy tears, I tell you. And during that time, it was interesting because I had to be happy for my friends because people are going. But I also was like, what's happening? And my friends wanted to also be happy that they were going, but they were like, Kelechi, who started this whole thing, is not good. So I went through a very hard time. That's not why I was depressed. The story gets worse. Then I lost my aunt a month after. She was very close to me. I actually saw her a day before she died, and she died in a way we couldn't. She wasn't sick. So just like as I am, she had gone for an event, and she was given a vote of thanks at the end of the event and slumped and died. Then I started questioning, let me tell you one of the first things I did when I had the experience. I went and I picked the book of Job and I read it. And I said, so I started reading the book of Job because let me know how Job reacted to these things. And when I started reading the book of Job, I was like, Job had it worse than me. So, but I was angry. I was angry at myself. I was angry at God. I was angry at family. I was angry at nature. I was angry at everything. I was mad. Luckily for me, I woke up I remember not being able to sleep a particular night. And I woke up and I start writing. So I start writing and I wrote an article that is called God is Good, Think Again. When I was done, I wrote another article called God is Dead. And you can see all these articles on the Nebula House website, so the nebulahouse.com. And I wrote them on an A4 paper with pen, so it was not even anything digital. And I can remember one of those papers was soiled with tears because I wasn't writing to an audience per se. I was writing to myself. So one of the things I did with the writing, and that's why I keep saying to you tomorrow that writing saved my life, was when I was writing, I was communicating with myself on paper. I wasn't necessarily writing to let the world know what I was going through. I mean, I was going through pain. Why do I want the world to know what I'm going through, right? I was communicating with myself. So if you read those writings, it seemed like a letter I wrote to myself. And the reason I did that was when I was going through that pain, there was a part of me that was, you know, what we're doing when you watch anime or cartoons, where you have angel and devil, right? So I had a part of me that was saying, be hopeful, things will get better. And part of me was like, you know what, Kelechi, trust me, you're cooked, you're gone. Like, this is the last you would. And I was going through so much pain. So I was writing. So if you read the article, it seemed like a dialogue between two sides of myself. When I wrote the first article, I was scared of publishing it because, again, you know, no one knew what I was going through. And I was like, why am I going to publish this? It's for me to read and it's for my own consumption. That I decided to publish it, and I published it, and everybody, you know, started asking me questions. Are you okay? I'm like, obviously not. You know, and then I write another article, and this is a more interesting article. I write an article called "You're More Likely Cain Than Abel." You're more likely Cain than Abel. And the reason this article is important is, and this is the truth, I was Cain during that season. I offered a sacrifice. My friends offered a sacrifice. And so for some reason, God accepts theirs and not mine. And whether I like it or not, I started becoming a bit resentful and envious. And I realized that these are not my enemies. These are not acquaintances. These are close friends. Just like Abel was a close brother of Cain. And I began to realize that if I didn't check it, then I was going to commit the sin of Cain. So, one of the things that stood out to me in that story was when God meets Cain and says, sin stands at your door. You have to watch it. Because God tells Cain that to warn him of a sin he was going to commit. So, I had two sides of myself having a conversation. And I realized, these are my friends. These are people I went to school with. These are people that I love and care about. And yes, we all worked hard to get this admission, and we all got it, thanks be to God. We worked hard. I mean, I was the only one that even got a scholarship, to be honest. And for some reason, I didn't get in. And then I wrote the article on You're More Likely Cain Than Abel. And when I published that article, one of my friends came to me and said, it was such a great article. I mean, it helped me. I'm like, I am Cain. I'm writing this because I'm trying to help myself. Because I began to isolate. I began to ask God very existential questions. And then the second article, I came up with the fourth article. And the fourth article was gratitude. The utility of gratitude. I think I'm jumping my entire course program, but well, here you have it. And what I did, and this is what we're going to talk about, is when your life starts going bad, one of the first things you want to do is to look for the good things that could have gone bad that didn't. This is crucial. You have to remember this. When your life starts going bad, I call it's something I hope to philosophize, to be honest. I call it the firefly effect. And the reason why I call it the firefly effect is that when you walk into a dark room, it's all dark. That dark room is the representation of your life. And you have walked in and you can't see anything. It's dark because you don't know, you don't have an idea of the next conceivable future. You don't know what is going to happen next. And you're going to find yourself in such situations. It's going to happen. It's not a cause. It is just the vicissitudes of the human condition. When you walk into the room and it's all dark, and that darkness represents a particular time in your life, what I tell people to do is look for the firefly. You know what the firefly is now? The ancient said that has the look for the firefly. And the reason why you look for the firefly is that may be the only glimmer of hope you have. To know that, okay, this room is dark and things are going to hell, but I can see some flicker of light. And that may be all you need. And they may be very practical with this. I hope nobody's in this situation, but let's assume graduation list comes out and your names are not there. One of your names is not, one of you, your names, you don't just make it, either because you're sitting at the back and you are not paying attention in class, or you fail the course, or whatever the case it is. And you have all your friends graduating on graduation day, and you have to be at home, and you have to visit the course, and your life is on pause. You have to sit back and ask, what exactly is going well? I could be in the hospital, I could be dead. And this is not some manifesting, no. This is a coping mechanism. At least it was a coping mechanism for me. I wasn't doing it because I was trying to be grateful. I was doing it because I was trying not to die. At least by my own hands. I call it the firefly effect because no matter how bad your life is going, look well. There was a firefly. Then I write the 6th article. This article is even very interesting. It's called The Endless Depth of Hell. And to summarize it is, and the reason I'm taking my time to talk about all this is that every other thing we're going to do in this term is going to highlight each of these articles, and I'm going to bring them out. So I'm telling you all this because I am a living proof of what I'm about to tell you. So I write The Endless Depth of Hell. The endless depth of hell, the summary of it is, no matter how bad your life is going, there's something you can do to make it worse. Because hell is endless. You think, oh, okay, graduation, I didn't make it to graduation list. I'm not going to go back to rewrite the course. Okay, that means you're not going to be a graduate. That's worse than receiving a course in a year after. Okay, I'm not going to be a graduate. Well, if you're not going to be a graduate, then maybe start some artisan work. Well, I'm not going to start artisan work, I'm going to start fraud. And then before you know it, you just see yourself you keep going down to the depths of hell. And hell here is metaphorical. It means a place where you don't want to be. This is what we are going to highlight, right? And that's why you see this in the Meaning in Darkness. The next week we're going to talk about, I'm now going to zoom in into pain as an awakener and how I was awakened from it. And then we talk about we highlight stories from people outside, myself and outside here, who went through some certain things in their life and how they came back from it. When I was done with that, with writing the articles of The Endless Depths of Hell, I read an article called My 14th Reasons Why Not. And this article was at the zenith of the problem. And if you understand what 13 Reasons Why is, you understand what I mean by 14 Reasons Why Not. So 13 Reasons Why, I think it's like a sentence that has to do with suicide. I think there was a movie about it or something where someone killed himself, had 13 reasons why he wanted to die. So I wrote an article called My 14th Reason Why Not. Why not means why I still want to be alive and enjoy this life. And what I highlighted in the article was what I have gone through and the only thing that kept me up. And it's interesting, and we're going to talk about this in term 2. The only thing that kept me up in my 1 year, 2 years of depression was love. It wasn't faith. I mean, maybe faith is an expression of love. I don't know. But it was love. It was love. In all its ramifications. Romantic, platonic. It was. And at the end of the article, I wrote, I don't want to rest in peace. I want to rest in love. And what the article did, and what I was trying to talk about, because I wrote this article after I had survived, or at least after I thought I survived. And what I realized is I am not just responsible for my life. I'm responsible for the life of every other person around me. Which means, what great disgrace to myself and what great wickedness can I commit to those around me to take my own life? That was it. I love these people so much and they need me here because suicide is dangerous. It's the people that bear the burden of suicide are the people that love you the most. So during that time, I said, even if you don't love yourself, or if you hate yourself well enough to kill yourself, at least love people around you enough to be around, because these are the people that will bear the most. So I don't know what we are all wearing suits, and man, I've been through hell, So some other articles I wrote during that time was hell is empty and all the devils are here. And I'm going to highlight, so this is to give you confidence. The reason I've given all this story, shared this vulnerability, is so that when I start talking philosophically or existentially, or you don't see me as a talking head, but I'm coming from a lot of experiences. And these experiences, whether good or bad, has made me to realize that I myself, I am, this may sound like a very humble statement, but I'm not the strong man I thought I was, but at least maybe I am now. But so I have gone through these experiences, I have learned my lessons, and I think the reason why even people my age would suffer greatly here is respond to suffering in a way they shouldn't, is because they didn't have these experiences that I had. And if you don't know how to respond to suffering, you may end up suffering even more negatively. So in the coming week, we're going to talk about pain, we're going to talk about meaning in darkness, and we're going to talk about the war within. Now, if the Cain, you're more likely Cain than Abel, highlights the war within, because at that time I was struggling to be Kelechi or Cain. Thankfully, Kelechi won. Look at meaning in darkness, like I talked about, the firefly effect, pain and as an awakener, how I started writing and how I looked forward to philosophy, or even the idea of thinking, and that being one of the ways I ameliorated my pain and suffering. So we would see next week and talk more on these things. Thank you.